Well, for more on our stories coming out of Libya, we're joined by Dr. Webster Tarpley, who is an author and historian who is joining us now via satellite from Washington. Dr. Tarpley, thank you very much for taking your time out to speak to us here at Press TV. Now, sir, you've called events playing out in Libya, and I'm quoting you now, quote, a carefully, cynically planned military operation by the NATO High Command, the U.S. playing a very important role in it, end quote. Could you expand on that for us?
Well, if we just look at the events that took place over the weekend under the auspices of NATO's Operation Mermaid Dawn or Operation Siren, we have, first of all, the carpet bombing of areas around Tripoli by the Royal Air Force. They're now boasting about the efficacy of their Paveway 4 missiles, their Brimstone missiles. Lots of civilian deaths there. We had the Apache helicopters being used to strafe civilians with machine gun fire if they got in the way of the advance of these al-Qaeda rebels. We then had an amphibious landing from a series of warships, a NATO fleet that stood off the coast. It looked something like maybe not the Normandy invasion, but maybe the raid on Dieppe or something like that. These were al-Qaeda fighters under European officers. And when I say al-Qaeda, that's broadly including the Libyan Islamic fighting group. You then had a prearranged signal. Some renegade mosques gave out the call to prayer there at the end of the fast, down with Gaddafi, and that was the signal for death squads that had been infiltrated into the city to rise up. You also had a series of fake SMS or text messages. You also had NATO bombing the Gaddafi television off the air. You also had this amazing series of fake reports that Gaddafi had left the country, that Saif had been captured, that Mohammed had been captured, that other people, other sons of Gaddafi, that Khamis had been captured after his brigade had mutinied and refused to fight. It's all fake. And then, to cap this all off, I think the most amazing is this soundstage that NATO, with the help of Doha and Qatar, created the equivalent of a Hollywood set, which was designed to mimic the appearance of the Green Square. Of course, those Green Square buildings are very old. Some of them go back to the Roman Empire. I've actually been inside some of them. But they created that in Doha, and if you look, there's a very interesting comparison that's circulating on the internet where they show you what the Green Square really looks like and what this fake set looks like. It's quite similar, but there are enough giveaways so that you can see that this was also fake. So this is a tremendous campaign of mass brainwashing, of psychological warfare, and it had a stunning effect. But, of course, since they were not able to go all the way with this rabble force that they have, there's now a tendency over the last several days for the Gaddafi forces to regroup and fight back, but in a different way, not holding fixed lines, not trying to defend a compound or Sirte or a city or anything else, but rather engaging in a warfare of movement and urban warfare where the previous advantages of the al-Qaeda people, the Benghazi rebels, have been vastly diminished. And I think the really big question is how many rebels have been killed in these operations. Their supply is not without end. I think they've had tremendous casualties that have been inflicted on the rebels by the Gaddafi forces. And I wonder how long it'll be before some of those rebels decide to go home. They've looted whatever they can loot. Maybe they want to take their loot and go home. I think they're going to melt away, and the ones that remain behind are going to start killing each other because this is the nature of that beast.
Well, sir, at first, many U.S. politicians were actually against Obama's Libya involvement, but many now seem to have warmed up to the idea. What do they see the U.S. getting in return for its quote-unquote humanitarian mission in Libya?
Well, they think that we're getting a facelift for American imperialism, that you can now come forward as the champion of human rights and so forth. This is absolute demagogy of the worst kind. Victory has many fathers, except this is no victory. Some of the people who are claiming paternity at this point are going to be denying it, I think, when you see what's happening here. How should this be different from Afghanistan or Iraq? A foreigner coming from the other side of the world seeking to impose an alien law, in this case on a very proud people, tradition of independence. Remember, they gave up 1 million casualties to get the Italians out. They're the first ones in the world to be on the receiving end of poison gas. You can ask Field Marshal Graziani of the Italians how it is to pacify Libya. It's not very easy at all. And this these Potemkin fighters, this Benghazi rebel council, their armed forces are the least of it. They're simply something to put on television. The heavy lifting was done by NATO. This was NATO, 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 with a few extras, walk-on parts, just to make this look plausible to international public opinion. But I think militarily this will go on for a very long time. There's a whole big province of Fezzan in the south. Those people are black. They're Libyans, they're Arabs, and they're black. They're not going to accept the yoke of that racist Benghazi council. Remember, the Benghazi people distinguished themselves, especially at the beginning, by lynching and massacring black Africans, be they from Mali or Chad or wherever they were. Or if you were a black Libyan, being black in Benghazi was a capital crime, because they would then say you're a Gaddafi mercenary and take care of you.
All right. Well, we will have to leave it there.